Hey guys, Dow Phoenix here, and I wanted to talk about an article I saw in the Penny Arcade report. Basically, it's Penny Arcade's gaming blog, in case you're not familiar with it. But anyways, this article is about the Xbox One will kill used games and control secondhand sales. And that's great news. Really? Yeah, that's right. That's what Ben Kuchera wrote. Basically, just to kind of go into the article a little bit, he starts the article off by saying Microsoft stepped in a load of dog shit when news of fees to play used games and account-based permissions began to hit the press, and the lack of a cohesive message in this area has hurt the public's perception of the upcoming Xbox One. The idea of the used game, at least that we understand it, may be coming to a close. The surprising thing, this could be great news. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little more about what he means by this. If you read this article, I'm going to have a link down in the description. He basically talks about how the whole used game and game license thing is going to work on the Xbox One. He also talks about how Microsoft is going to more or less control the used game market on the Xbox One. And he talks about how this allows them to take advantage of used games, which for a long time have been an issue with some video game companies as far as being able to make money. A lot of these games like Tomb Raider that just recently came out sold 3.4 million copies in the first month, considered a financial failure. Why? Because I guess with the budget of the game and the advertising costs, it just simply did not add up. The game is more or less going to be a loss for Square Enix, and the Square Enix America president has stepped down in part because of the financial mistakes of games like that, Hitman Absolution, and Sleeping Dogs. So, and later on in the article, he talks about why this whole used game thing is a good thing. Now, the first point I do agree with, in that piracy will likely be reduced. This is definitely going to make piracy a lot harder to be able to accomplish on the Xbox One. So, that means a little bit less freeloading, you could say, about this. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because pirates, they have their ways. They will figure it out eventually. It might take them a few weeks. It might take them a few months. It might even take them a couple years to figure it out. But they will figure it out eventually. And Microsoft will have to scramble to try to combat that. The other part that he was talking about, though, is that with the used game market more or less disappearing because Microsoft's going to be in control of it, it's not going to allow companies like GameStop to make the big bucks that they used to. Now, I'm still pretty sure that Microsoft is cutting in companies like GameStop into this, but the cut is probably going to be very minimal. It may not even be worth it for GameStop to carry used Xbox One games. Now, one thing that he brings up is without the used market sucking up all those sales and consumer money, it's very possible we will see Steam-style sales on older or bundled games on the Xbox One. Except not at all, probably. Because sales like that are used to combat against used games. It's meant to give the publishers and the OEMs like Microsoft a chance to combat the money that's going into the used games market. Microsoft hasn't really showed a whole lot of interest in offering competitive pricing on their digital downloads. Yeah, they have sales. They'll have 50% off sales here and there. But honestly, have you ever took a look at the sales that you'll see on a site like Steam or Green Man Gaming? Heck, the PlayStation 3 Have you ever compared the sales on those to the Xbox 360? It makes the Xbox 360 look pathetic. Microsoft doesn't seem to have any interest over their game distribution model online. Part of the reason is the games are higher priced. I mean, you could take a game like, say, Mass Effect, for instance. That's a game that you can currently buy on the Xbox 360 Live Marketplace. I think they charge about $20 for it. Now, you could buy a brand new copy of Mass Effect with like some extra DLC with the disc and manual and all that good stuff for the same price. So what incentive as a consumer do I have to download that game over going into a store or ordering a retail copy of it online? None, not really any. It's going to take up a lot of space on my hard drive. I might have to delete stuff on my hard drive. I'll have to wait a long time for the download, just so that I don't have to put the disc in. That's really the only incentive that there is for the whole digital distribution model that Microsoft has. It's just an inferior model in comparison to Sony's model or Valve's model. So if Microsoft bashes down the used game market like this is talking about, Ben Kuchera seems to think this will automatically mean that Microsoft's all of a sudden going to start being competitive in the digital distribution market. But there's no evidence of that, because everything they are doing is going to undercut the competition to the digital distribution market. They have no incentive to offer us better incentive for digital distribution. Basically what that means is it's just going to get worse, really. The only thing that might convince Microsoft to offer more competitive pricing is if the PlayStation 4 is a big hit over it in the first year. I mean, if we have the PlayStation 4 sell at least twice as many units as the Xbox One in the first year, that might make them want to be a little more competitive. You have to think about what's happened in the past. You remember Sega? Yeah, Sega, they had a really successful console with the Sega Genesis. They thought, well, we're the shit. We can release the Sega Saturn at $400, and even though it's inferior hardware to the PlayStation, and it costs more, and the game selection was frankly not that great. Sega had to scramble after a year or two with these special bundle deals and everything like that, including some free games, to try to get people to buy the Sega Saturn. They dropped the price on the system fairly quickly too. And then we had the Dreamcast, of course. The Dreamcast was a great console, but when the PlayStation 2 came about, Sega decided to drop off the market after just a few months. So, that's what happens if you can't keep a competitive edge throughout. If Microsoft fails in competing with Sony, with Valve, with Nintendo, it's going to be very damaging for them. Now, Nintendo is another one, of course, that really has not given consumers a great digital distribution market, especially when you consider that the game downloads are locked to the console. So, if your console breaks, or if you have to get it replaced, you might be screwed out of your games that you've downloaded. That's not a very consumer-friendly tactic. That's more or less what Microsoft is trying to aim for here. Yeah, I know you got the whole account thing. You can technically have your account on another system and be able to download that game again for free. But the pricing model for the 360 as far as the digital distribution has just been awful. There's nothing to suggest that if they get rid of used games, or at least hinder it, that it's all of a sudden going to be better. That's not going to happen. See, when a company like Valve, they offer these deals on Steam, it took people a little while to get used to it, because for one, you're not getting a physical game. For two, you can't resell the game. You can't give it to someone else. So you're pretty much stuck with it once you buy it. So that has made Valve more competitive and consumer friendly in order to drive digital distribution as a viable method for delivering games. What has Microsoft done to do this? Just throwing it out there. So, if you guys like what I was talking about, give me a like. If you don't like it, tell me why in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. With that, guys, Down Phoenix out.